How are you? Hope you're doing amazing. I'm great too. Welcome to the last lesson of the week, the five-finger retelling but writing technique. Okay? The other class we saw the same skill as reading comprehension skill. Today you are going to learn how to write it, how to write down a summary and to retell a story. Remember that the five-finger technique has five elements: characters, setting, problem, events, and solution. In events, you have to include the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. Okay? To make brief summaries using this technique is really helpful because we know like the order that we have to use to retell the story and to make it clear for other people. This technique really can help you to become a better writer and to help you in further lessons when you have to learn other skills related to summarizing, okay? And to text structure. Okay, let's begin with characters. The characters are those who appear in the story. It could be people or animals or whatever that is alive, okay? Remember that this technique is used mostly for fiction stories, not for those that are non-fiction. Mostly for, it could be for movies, for any story that you like, for like the example that we've been working with, the Little Red Riding Hood, and it's almost for fantasy text, okay? The characters, you have to mention them, but you also have to give a brief description of them. For example, imagine that we are talking about three boys. And these three boys appear in the story and they are the main characters. Imagine that they are called Tom, Peter, and John. Okay, so first you have to begin the story by saying, the story is about three boys called, and you mention their names, and then you give a brief description. Using the character traits technique, remember, you have to use adjectives to describe them. For example, Tom was shy, Peter was very smart, and John had a lot of friends. Okay? So you make like a brief introduction to the story and of whom you are going to talk about. Then it goes the setting. The setting is where the story takes place and when. If it's mentioned, you can write about when the story takes place, I don't know, in the early 60s or wherever, but you have to talk all of the times where. In the forest, in a castle, in the beach, at school, whatever, okay? And you have to give a brief description of the place. The story takes place in a forest that was very peaceful, and there lived, I don't know, a raccoon, a bear, and they were friends. It could be like that, okay? Then you have to mention the problem. The main challenge, the main problem, what's the story about, is like the most important thing of the story to begin with, okay? So if the problem of these three boys is that they have to do, I don't know, a school work together, but they don't like each other, that's the problem of the story, and that's how you're going to begin. So you describe the characters, you describe the setting, and then you describe the main issue of the story. And then we go with the events that occur in the story and in chronological order. That means that you're not going to begin talking about the end of the story. Most of the princess stories begin with once upon a time. That's that's when you know it's the beginning, and those end, and they lived happily ever after. That's the ending. And the middle, remember, is like the sandwich, is like the middle of the story. The two slices of bread are at the beginning, the ham is the middle, and the other slice of bread is the end of the story. Okay, at the beginning, you have to use words like at the beginning or first, There were three little boys. These three little boys were going to school. And then they found a notebook that was of another classmate. I don't know, and you begin to introduce to the story. Which words you have to use? You have to use at the beginning of the story, comma, you put the information, and then you continue describing. In the middle, you have to use words like then, or next, or afterwards, or additionally, to talk about the main part of the story. It's like where all it gets complicated, and that's where you know you're talking about the middle, okay? So you use words like then they decided to, they had the problem, what they were doing at the beginning, and then what they decide to do, okay? And at the end, you are going to use words like finally, comma, at the end. After you use words like then, next, those sequence words, you have to use a comma afterwards, okay? So you use finally at the end, the boys solved the problem by doing what? Finally, the boys solved the problem by learning to work together. For example, that's the ending of the story. And the last thing that you have to talk about is the solution. Did it work? Did the solution work? Had you done things differently? What would you have done if you were in their place? It's like the moral message of the story. And you have to begin talking about it saying, I think that they took the right path, or I think that their solution was okay because I would do the same thing, or stuff like that. For these activities, don't worry, remember I sent you sentence frames. Those sentence frames, you have to use them, the exact words that I sent to you, and just fill the blanks with the information that is the most important to talk about the story and to make sense with the rest of the paragraphs. So you just have to complete those sentences that I sent to you previously. Okay? I hope this really have helped you, and hope you're great. Remember to take care of yourselves and stay safe at home. Bye.